We have some really critically important financial updates for you today, especially if you are, a retiree, maybe a public servant, or if you rely on Social Security, SSDI, or SSI benefits. Look, for millions of Americans, the anxiety around just rising costs and benefits maybe not keeping up, it's constant. But our deep dive into the latest sources, it actually reveals three major positive financial shifts. One is confirmed, one's already delivered, and one is proposed. And they're really transforming the landscape of retirement security right now.
That anxiety is absolutely real, and the news we've pulled together today, it speaks directly to providing some immediate breathing room. It really does. We are looking at a confirmed mandatory benefit increase starting in 2026. It's an average of about $56 more per month, and that's the baseline we're talking about.
Yeah. Right, $56 confirmed. But the truly consequential money, I mean, that's already flowing, isn't it? But we're also covering this massive correction of what was really a historic injustice. We're talking $17 billion in lump sum payments already delivered to public servants like teachers and police officers who were, frankly, unfairly penalized for years.
Exactly. And then there's the vision for the future, if you will. We're breaking down a really transformative piece of proposed legislation. It's called the Social Security Expansion Act. And the big headline there is it aims to boost your annual income by an additional $2,400 per year, while, and this is key, simultaneously guaranteeing the solvency, the health of the entire system for the next 75 years.
75 years, that's a long horizon.
It is. So this isn't just about, tweaking things around the edges. These are structural changes. They're designed to really reinforce your financial stability. And it even starts with things like a brand new $6,000 tax deduction specifically for seniors. So yeah, let's unpack all this crucial news.
Okay, welcome back to the deep dive. Our mission today, it's laser focused. We are basically serving as your expert guides through all the latest updates, congressional, administrative, economic, regarding Social Security. For so many of you, these benefits are, well, they're the core of your existence, right? And we know you need clarity. You need to know what's coming and, importantly, when it will actually arrive. So this is a story that kind of merges confirmed financial relief with some proactive legislative planning for the future.
That's absolutely right. Too often the conversation around Social Security, it gets dominated by fear, doesn't it? Insolvency deadlines and, will it be there? Today, though, we are focused entirely on positive, tangible financial news. That's the goal. What's really unique about this moment is this confluence of actions happening almost simultaneously. You've got a mandatory COLA increase confirmed, a historic legislative wrong has been corrected, money's in the bank for people, and now a major policy proposal is gaining some serious traction to ensure that long-term stability we talked about.
It really feels like a multi-pronged approach to security, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And we want you, the listener, to walk away from this deep dive really knowing the confirmed amounts, the timeline, and also the powerful potential that lies ahead. So let's frame this discussion. Let's lay out the three core financial boosts we've synthesized from all our source material.
Okay, first up, the confirmed cost of living adjustment, the COLA, for 2026. This is mandatory. It's set by law. The increase is set at 2.8%. And that translates, on average, now this is average, to about $56 more in your monthly check, starting January 2026.
$56 more, starting January 2026. Got it. Okay, second.
Second, the major correction that is actually complete. It's done. The Social Security Administration, the SSA, has successfully delivered $17 billion in lump sum payments. This was under the Social Security Fairness Act, and it effectively ended, decades of financial punishment for certain public servants.
$17 billion delivered. That's huge. Okay, and third, the future-looking piece.
And third, the massive legislative goal on the horizon, the proposed Social Security Expansion Act. This aims to provide an additional $2,400 per year. That's an extra $200 per month, roughly. An extra $200 in benefits, completely separate from the standard COLA we just mentioned. And at the same time, share up the trust fund for 3/4 of a century. So yeah, these are the pillars of, I guess, financial optimism we'll detail today.
Okay, let's dive into the first pillar then, the guarantee. The 2026 cost of living adjustment, the COA. So starting January 2026, about 75 million Americans. That's a huge number.
It's enormous.
Yeah, including retirees, folks receiving disability insurance, SSDI, And also supplemental security income SSI recipients. They will all see their benefits go up by 2.8%.
Right. And, to put that into real world dollars, like we said, for the average beneficiary, that 2.8% means approximately $56 more arriving in your bank account each month. Now, we absolutely have to acknowledge the immediate reaction here, right? People hear $56 and think, well, again, 7% healthcare inflation, or, my utility bill just jumped again. Does it feel like enough?
That is definitely the common feedback we see in the comments, and it's a perfectly valid point. It really is.
Yeah.
But our sources, they urge us to look at this not just as a single number, $56, but as evidence. Evidence that the mechanism, the whole COLA system designed to protect your purchasing power, is actually working as it's supposed to. I mean, the 2.8% adjustment, it is notably higher than the previous year's COLA, which shows the system is in fact reacting to the economic pressure points that are captured in the data.
Exactly. And if we dive into the history of KLA just for a second, it's quite fascinating. It reflects policy reacting to sheer necessity. Before the 1970s, Social Security benefits weren't automatically adjusted for inflation at all. Can you imagine? Congress had to pass specific legislation like every few years just to give an increase.
Yeah.
Think about the impact of the really high inflation back in the 1960s and 70s.
Right.
If you retired in, say, 1965 with a $2,000 monthly benefit, which was good money, then that amount was fixed. By 1975, its buying power was just drastically reduced. It was terrible for people.
Wow, okay. So the adoption of the automatic COLA back in the 70s, that was a critical safety measure then, just ensuring benefits wouldn't become, I guess, functionally worthless over a typical, 20 or 30-year retirement.
Precisely. It protects against that long-term erosion.
So tell us how this 2.8% number is actually generated. You said it's based on data. It's completely independent of, political winds or maneuvering, correct?
Absolutely. That's the design. The calculation is meant to be objective, non-political. The COLA is tied directly to the change in a specific index, the Consumer Price Index for urban wage earners and clerical workers. We call it the CPRW. The Social Security Act itself dictates that the change in this specific index, measured from the third quarter of the previous year to the third quarter of the current year, that change determines the COLA percentage for the following January.
Okay, the CPIW. Why that specific index, and what does it actually track?
Well, the CPIW, it measures the average change over time in the prices paid by urban wage earners, people working hourly or salaried jobs in cities, for a specific basket of consumer goods and services. Think everything from, food and clothes to energy costs, rent, transportation. Its use ensures that the increase is grounded in real economic conditions, as reported by the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the BLS. This objectivity, it's really paramount to maintaining trust that the system is responding fairly, even if, as you said, the resulting number is often criticized, sometimes legitimately, for maybe not fully reflecting the unique costs faced specifically by seniors. We'll get to that later.
Right, because seniors spend differently. Okay, and just for planning purposes, this is crucial for folks on a fixed income. When will beneficiaries know their exact new dollar amount? That uncertainty around planning finances, it's a major stressor. We know that.
Yes, absolutely. And the Social Security Administration, the SSA, they're actually very efficient in this communication. They get that part right. They will begin mailing the official COLA notices, the letters that detail your specific new dollar amount starting in early December, usually the first week or two. This is the official notification you should look for in the mail. Don't trust phone calls or emails asking for info. Wait for the letter. And it gives you that crucial time, about a month, to adjust your budget before the new benefit amount actually hits your bank account in January.
Okay, so look for that official SSA letter in early December. That's the key takeaway there. And you also confirmed, just to be clear, the same 2.8% increase applies to supplemental security income, SSI. Right?
Yes, absolutely confirmed. SSI payments will also increase by 2.8%, which provides that parallel essential support to low-income, elderly, blind, and disabled individuals who rely on SSI. It's critically important for that group, too.
Good. Okay, let's pivot now. Let's talk about this story of profound and actually rapid correction, where advocacy, people speaking up for years, translated directly into billions, with a B, billions of dollars of relief that's already been delivered.
Yeah.
We're talking about the effective nullification, finally, of the windfall elimination provision, WEP, and the government pension offset, GPO, through the enforcement of the Social Security Fairness Act.
Yes, this is truly a massive administrative and financial success story, however you slice it. This legislation, its impact, primarily affects nearly 3 million dedicated public servants. We are discussing, the teachers in your local schools, the police officers on the beat, the municipal firefighters, individuals who earned a pension through their public service, often decades of it, but then were penalized, sometimes severely, when they tried to claim the Social Security benefits they also earned, maybe from a second job or earlier career.
Right, they paid into both systems in many cases.
Exactly. Or their spouse did. And to understand the scope of this correction, we really have to understand why the WEP and GPO were seen as so unfair, so punitive. The windfall elimination provision was originally designed way back to prevent someone who received a pension from a job not covered by Social Security, like some state or local government jobs, from also getting what the SSA at the time deemed an unearned windfall through the regular Social Security benefit formula, which is weighted towards lower earners. But in practice, it just severely reduced the calculated Social Security benefit. It often cut the Social Security payment of, say, a retired teacher by hundreds of dollars every single month, even if they had worked, say, 30 years in a second job paying Social Security taxes. It just didn't seem fair to many people.
Hundreds of dollars a month. That's a huge hit. And the GPO, the government pension offset, that was arguably even more damaging, wasn't it? Especially, I believe, for women.
Precisely. You're absolutely right. The GPO, it reduced or sometimes completely eliminated spousal or widow's Social Security benefits for people who also received their own government pension from non-covered work. Unlike the WEP, which modified the benefit formula, the GPO reduction was just brutal. The spousal or survivor benefit was reduced by 2/3 of the amount of a person's own government pension. So for many retired educators or civil servants, particularly women who might have lower pensions themselves, but were counting on survivor benefits from a higher earning spouse, this often meant their entire survivor benefit, earned through their spouse's lifetime of work and contributions, was completely wiped out. Zero. It felt like a tremendous injustice, penalizing people twice for dedicating their lives to public service.
Just wiped out. Okay, so addressing a critique we sometimes hear that maybe our analysis lacks technical depth.
Let's get into it.
How did the SSA actually manage to calculate and then deliver $17 billion to over 3 million people so quickly? That sounds like an absolute accounting nightmare.
Oh, it required an immense, really rapid administrative effort, no question. The SSA basically had to audit over 3.1 million individual beneficiary accounts. That's a massive undertaking. They had to cross-reference past earnings histories, dig up old pension records maybe from decades ago, and then calculate the exact dollar amount of the reduction that had been applied to each person specifically because of WEP or GPO, going all the way back to the date they started receiving benefits, potentially years or decades ago. That $17 billion figure, that's the sum total of all those past underpayments they identified and corrected.
Wow, okay. And what we found truly remarkable digging into the sources was the timeline. The SSA apparently completed sending out all 3.1 million of those lump sum payments 5 months ahead of their own internal schedule.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a clear demonstration, isn't it?
Right.
That when there's a political mandate from Congress, you have efficient administrative leadership, the government actually can deliver financial relief quickly and effectively. It's not always slow.
Yeah. It really is a testament to getting it done. And the human impact here, it just cannot be overstated. These lump sum payments, they weren't trivial amounts. In many cases, they were thousands, sometimes tens of thousands of dollars, back payments that were frankly long overdue. Think about it. For a retired public servant living on a razor-thin fixed income, maybe struggling with unexpected costs, that money is potentially transformative. It allows them to finally address critical needs they might have put off for years, paying off lingering medical debt, maybe replacing a failing roof on their home, or just creating a much-needed emergency cushion, some peace of mind. This correction, it really helps restore the financial security and, frankly, the dignity those public servants earn through their years of service. And it sets a powerful precedent, I think, for administrative accountability going forward.
A powerful precedent, indeed. Okay, let's transition now. We've talked benefit increases, we've talked corrections. Let's move to another area of immediate financial relief, which is tax savings. This is a really crucial element because, shielding your income from taxation, it's functionally equivalent to increasing your disposable income, right?
Yeah.
Money you actually get to keep and spend.
Exactly. It's money back in your pocket, just through a different mechanism. And this specific relief, it's arriving courtesy of relatively new legislation. Our sources sometimes refer to it, maybe colloquially, as the One Big Beautiful Bill.
Right.
Whatever its official name, it instituted a very targeted senior tax deduction. This is kind of a quiet but potentially powerful win for beneficiaries who are living on those fixed incomes we keep talking about.
Okay, give us the specifics then. What's the amount? Who's eligible? Because this is confirmed tax relief, and it starts next year, correct?
That's right, confirmed and starting soon. Beginning with the 2025 tax year, so the taxes you file in early 2026 seniors age 65 and older will be eligible to claim a brand new additional deduction. That's the really key detail here. It is added on top of the standard deduction they already receive as seniors, and the amounts are quite substantial. Single filers who qualify can claim up to $6,000 extra, and married couples, where both spouses qualify by age, can claim up to $12,000 extra.
$12,000 extra for a married couple
Yeah.
on top of the standard deduction. That is significant income shielded from federal taxes.
Yeah.
So how does this actually interact with the standard deduction, which most seniors already take because it's simpler than itemizing?
Well, it basically makes the standard deduction even more attractive and valuable for seniors. It simplifies their tax picture while simultaneously reducing their tax burden. For context, in the current tax year, the standard deduction for seniors is already higher than it is for younger taxpayers because they get an additional amount just for being over 65. This new deduction we're talking about, the $6,000 or $12,000, it gets layered right on top of that existing higher amount. So for instance, a single senior, depending on the exact standard deduction amount for that year, might now be able to deduct well over $20,000 from their taxable income before they pay a single dollar in federal income tax.
Over $20,000 shielded.
Wow.
Okay, so why is this approach using a deduction rather than, say, another direct benefit increase? Why is that considered particularly impactful for the senior population?
It really comes down to flexibility and necessity. That's what our sources suggest. Seniors, as a group, often have disproportionately high non-discretionary costs, things they have to pay for. Think housing, utilities, and particularly out-of-pocket medical expenses, which can be unpredictable and very high. So, by reducing their overall tax burden with this extra deduction, the government is essentially putting unencumbered cash back into their hands. They decide how to use it. This money isn't restricted like some program benefits might be. It can be used for that crucial prescription copay, or that unexpected car repair, or maybe just to cover a higher heating bill in the winter without having to cut back somewhere else. It recognizes that every single dollar retained by someone on a fixed income is absolutely essential for their basic quality of life and well-being.
Yeah, it directly addresses that core budget pressure point, where, as you said, every cent counts. It provides a critical buffer against that rising cost environment that maybe the CLA alone, that $56 might not fully cover for everyone. So it's a targeted recognition, really, of the unique economic situation that older Americans often face.
Precisely. It's another tool in the toolbox for financial security.
Okay, so we have the CLA confirmed, the Fairness Act delivered, the tax deduction coming online. Now let's look further out to the horizon. Let's discuss the legislation that represents really the most comprehensive push for system transformation we've seen in years, and that's the Social Security Expansion Act. This is where we move beyond incremental fixes towards truly fortifying the entire system for the long haul.
Right. This is the big picture proposal. And this legislation, it does have strong and quite vocal backing from key figures in Congress. You mentioned Senator Bernie Sanders, Senator Elizabeth Warren, Representative Jan Schakowsky. They are the primary sponsors pushing this forward. And the goal really is to fundamentally strengthen Social Security for the realities of the 21st century. And of course, the attention-grabbing figure, the one everyone talks about, is that potential $2,400 annual increase for beneficiaries.
$2,400 a year. Let's break that down. That's about $200 a month extra, right?
Exactly. That $2,400 per year, or $200 per month, is proposed as a minimum across-the-board benefit increase for all Social Security recipients, current and future. And importantly, as you noted earlier, it would be added on top of the standard regular CLA increases like the 2.8% we discussed. It's in addition to, you can imagine, for the most vulnerable seniors, maybe those relying almost entirely on Social Security, an extra $200 a month. That could be the difference between real hardship, maybe poverty, and achieving genuine financial stability. It's huge. It is huge. However, a deep dive requires us to address the foundational issue here. You can't just propose massive benefit increases like that without also addressing the long-term funding question. It's irresponsible not to. Our sources indicate this bill explicitly tries to do both things: boost benefits and extend the system's solvency for 75 years. So what is the fundamental mechanism the Expansion Act uses to actually pay for this boost and secure the trust fund? This is the technical detail our listeners really need to understand. Right, this is the absolute heart of the proposal. It's the central, most critical element of the entire bill and also the most debated. The Expansion Act proposes addressing the long-term solvency issue primarily by adjusting the maximum amount of wages subject to Social Security payroll taxes. Currently, as you probably know, there's a cap. In the latest data available, that cap is around $168,600 per year. Any income an individual earns above that cap is not subject to the Social Security payroll tax. This 6.2% for employees and employers each.
Okay, so just to be crystal clear, someone earning, say, $168,600 pays the exact same dollar amount in Social Security taxes as someone earning $1 million or $10 million a year. They both hit that cap equally.
Exactly. That's how it works right now. The Expansion Act proposes to change that fundamentally. It proposes eliminating or at least significantly lifting that cap. Some versions apply the tax to all income over $250,000, creating a sort of donut hole initially, but the core idea is similar. The effect is that income above the current threshold or above a new higher threshold would once again be subject to Social Security taxes. The argument is that by making the wealthiest earners contribute proportionally on more or even all of their income, similar to how Medicare taxes already work with no cap, the projected long-term funding gap for Social Security is closed. And the trust fund's lifespan, according to the bill's proponents and some independent analyses, is extended for 75 years. This adjustment simultaneously pays for that proposed $2,400 annual benefit increase and stabilizes the system for future generations without cutting benefits. That's the core concept.
Okay, that is a massive structural change. It really is. But it's also, as you hinted, the point of greatest political contention, isn't it? When we analyze the source material, what are the primary criticisms or the main arguments made against lifting that payroll tax cap? We need to present this impartially for our listeners.
Absolutely. The opposition is quite vocal, and it centers primarily, as you'd expect, on the impact of increased taxation on higher earners. Critics argue, first and foremost, that lifting the cap constitutes a significant tax increase, specifically targeting successful individuals, entrepreneurs, and potentially some small business owners who file their business income as individual income. They sometimes raise concerns about, quote, double taxation, arguing that benefits are capped but taxes wouldn't be, or they argue it might discourage high levels of income generation or investment. Look, our role here is just to report the facts of the debate. Fundamentally, it comes down to a philosophical question about who should bear the financial responsibility for strengthening the program for the future. Is it current and future beneficiaries through potentially reduced benefits or slower growth down the line? Or is it high-income earners through increased payroll contributions on income that's currently untaxed for Social Security? That's the crux of the political argument.
A fundamental disagreement on how to fund it.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, beyond the funding mechanism, the Expansion Act also seeks to permanently change how benefits keep pace with inflation each year. It aims to address those inherent limitations of the current CLA mechanism we touched on earlier. Let's delve into the proposed shift away from the CPIW and towards using the Consumer Price Index for the elderly, or the CPIE. Why is that significant?
This change, if enacted, would be a huge step towards greater equity and, frankly, accuracy for retirees' actual cost of living. We already established that the current formula uses the CPIW, which tracks inflation for urban wage earners and clerical workers. But think about it. Those workers, who are generally younger and still in the workforce, spend their money very differently than a typical senior citizen living on a fixed income. A wage earner might spend more heavily on things like gasoline for commuting, maybe electronics, or even tuition cost categories that sometimes see lower or at least different inflation rates than what seniors face.
Okay, so what does the CPIE prioritize then that the CPIW overlooks or maybe underweights?
Right. The CPIE is specifically calculated by the BLS to reflect the actual spending patterns, the consumption basket, of households where the reference person is age 62 or older. And critically, it gives significantly greater statistical weight to the categories where seniors spend a larger portion of their income. Primarily, that's necessities like healthcare doctor visits, hospital stays, insurance premiums, prescription drugs, and housing costs, including rent and utilities. These are precisely the categories where costs have consistently risen much faster than general inflation over the past few decades. If we look at the historical data comparing the two indices, the COLA calculated using the CPIE would have, on average, resulted in annual benefit increases that were anywhere from 0.2 to maybe 0.4 percentage points higher each year than the actual CRLAs calculated using the CPIW.
0.2 to 0.4% doesn't sound like much in 1 year, but imagine that incremental difference compounding year after year over a 20 or 30-year retirement. That adds up to a substantial amount of money, doesn't it?
It really does. It's thousands of dollars over the course of a typical retirement. It represents a formal recognition by policymakers that the current one-size-fits-all inflation measure, the CPIW, has likely been underestimating the real economic pressures faced uniquely by seniors for a long time. So the fact that this meaningful legislation, the Expansion Act, is gaining momentum, that it's tackling both the big, scary issue of long-term solvency and the issue of benefit adequacy and accuracy through the CPIE switch, well, it's a pretty strong signal, I think, that policymakers are hearing the needs and the advocacy from older Americans and their supporters.
Hearing the needs and proposing concrete, structural solutions.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, despite all these positive legislative efforts we've discussed, the CLA, the Fairness Act, the Tax Deduction, the Expansion Act proposal, we absolutely must address the persistent fear factor that still surrounds Social Security. You hear it all the time, right? Rumors still circulate, often online, that the program is going broke or on the verge of complete collapse. We need to replace that anxiety with clear, authoritative facts for our listeners.
Yes, let's be absolutely unequivocal here. This is maybe the most important point for listeners worried about their future checks. Social Security is not going broke. Full stop. The program has been successfully paying benefits on time and in full for nearly 90 years, through wars, recessions, you name it. And it continues to operate today with a massive financial cushion. Right now, the combined Social Security trust funds hold a surplus of $2.79 trillion. That's trillion with a T.
$2.79 trillion in reserve.
Right.
Okay, and what does that surplus actually guarantee in practical terms?
That existing surplus, based on current projections from the Social Security trustees, can guarantee the payment of every single promised benefit dollar for dollar to every eligible American until the year 2035. So any discussion you hear about a solvency issue cropping up around 2035 is not about the system suddenly running out of all money and check stopping. That's not what happens. It means that if Congress takes no action whatsoever between now and then, which is highly unlikely given the program's importance, the system would only be able to pay out about 80% of scheduled benefits from ongoing tax revenues after that date. So benefits would be reduced by approximately 20%, not eliminated. And the legislative efforts we're discussing today, especially the Social Security Expansion Act with its specific 75-year solvency plan, are aimed precisely at preventing any reduction from ever happening, ensuring full benefits and stability indefinitely.
Okay, so not going broke. There's a massive surplus. Action needed by 2035 to avoid a reduction, not elimination, and plans are actively being debated to ensure that happens. That's much clearer. Now, beyond the macro finances, the Social Security Administration itself is also making some important moves to improve the sort of day-to-day practical experience for beneficiaries. That's also a key element of financial security, right? Feeling like the system works for you. Tell us about the communication improvements you found.
Yes, this is a smaller point, but important for reducing stress and confusion. It's a nod to clarity and accessibility. The SSA is in the process of rolling out a newly designed and improved KOA notice, that annual letter we talked about earlier that comes in December. They've apparently made a concerted effort to shift away from complex, legalistic government jargon that nobody understands. These new notices are designed to be simpler, using more personalized, plain language. Crucially, they will clearly provide the exact dates and the exact dollar amounts of your individual benefit increase. No more guessing or trying to do the math yourself. This makes it much easier for recipients to accurately budget and understand their updated income without confusion or worry. Clear communication is really a fundamental form of support.
Clear communication is key. Absolutely. And we also confirmed earlier that supplemental security income, SSI, payments will track the same 2.8% increase.
What about just the resilience of the system itself administratively? Yes, SSI payments will also increase by the 2.8% COLA in 2026, providing that crucial parity for the most vulnerable. And, the resilience of the administration itself is actually worth noting. Our sources highlighted that the SSA was able to announce this upcoming COLA increase on schedule, despite ongoing administrative hurdles, funding debates, and even the looming threat of a potential government shutdown around that time. I think that underscores the broad political understanding across the aisle that seniors and other beneficiaries need this crucial financial information released as early and as reliably as possible for their planning. It's treated as essential.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground. We have confirmed adjustments like the COA, we have delivered corrections like the Fairness Act payments, and we have proposed transformation like the Expansion Act. How do we synthesize all these seemingly separate threads? Why is this multifaceted push for strengthening Social Security seemingly happening right now?
That's a great question. I think it points to a growing, maybe sometimes reluctant, consensus across political lines that Social Security isn't, some kind of welfare program. It's a social insurance program that people paid into. And its strength, its reliability, is universally important to tens of millions of voters and their families. Our sources do highlight examples of broad bipartisan support for specific measures, like fixing the WPGPO injustice with the Fairness Act. And you even see parallel legislative efforts focusing on overall well-being for seniors, like improving access to advanced healthcare screenings or lowering drug costs. Taken together, it suggests that policymakers increasingly recognize that true retirement security requires addressing both sides of the equation: income stability and the escalating cost of essential things like medical care.
That link between income security and health security is absolutely foundational, isn't it? And it kind of forces us to reflect on the program's original intent way back in the 1930s. Social Security was originally designed to be just one leg of the so-called three-legged stool of retirement income, right? It was meant to be supplemented by employer-provided pensions and personal savings.
That was the ideal, yes. The three-legged stool.
But the reality today, for so many people, it's just far less stable, isn't it? Those traditional defined benefit pensions are increasingly rare, especially in the private sector. And personal savings rates, well, they often lag behind what's needed, especially with inflation eroding purchasing power. So for millions of Americans, especially folks we try to speak to directly here, the fixed income earners, the low-income SSI recipients, those relying on disability benefits, Social Security isn't just a supplement anymore. For many, it is the primary or sometimes even the sole source of income they have to live on. And that reality makes these strengthening efforts. We've detailed things like potentially moving to the CPIE, the proposed $2,400 boost, the new tax relief. It makes them not just beneficial, but absolutely essential to ensuring basic human dignity in later life.
And that right there is the emotional connection we really want to ensure you grasp from this deep dive. These numbers we're throwing around: $17 billion, $2,400. They're not abstract figures on a spreadsheet. That extra $56 per month from the confirmed EACOLA, or the potential $200 per month from the Expansion Act if it passes, that provides genuine, tangible breathing room in a tight budget. For a senior who's struggling with high prescription drug costs, it could literally mean the difference between affording a necessary medication and having to go without it, or cutting pills in half. For that retired teacher who finally received their WAP correction lump sum, maybe thousands of dollars, it means they can perhaps repair their home without taking on scary new debt late in life.
These are real, tangible life improvements, and they are often the direct result of continuous advocacy, aren't they? People making their voices heard over years, even decades. The fact that $17 billion was finally delivered under the Fairness Act, it shows that when seniors and public servants organize and make their needs known persistently, the government eventually does respond with meaningful legislative and administrative changes. This process of continuous improvement, even if it feels slow sometimes, it's really the hallmark of a resilient democratic system responding to its citizens.
Well said. And these developments we've covered today, taken collectively, they really represent a multifaceted and seemingly coordinated effort to achieve greater financial confidence and security in retirement. It encompasses income adjustments through COLA, tax fairness through deductions, correction of historical errors like WPGPO, and proposals for long-term structural reform like the Expansion Act. Now, if we connect this to the broader policy environment and thinking ahead, it does raise a significant and maybe provocative question for you, the listener, to consider going forward. Given this current emphasis we're seeing on structural funding fixes, like adjusting the payroll cap, and on accuracy fixes like the proposed switch to the CPIE, is the next logical, perhaps inevitable stage of Social Security reform going to involve trying to more directly link benefit increases or adjustments to some kind of administrative cap or control on the rising cost of healthcare and housing, trying to ensure that the two largest expenses driving costs for seniors are somehow contained alongside efforts to boost their income? Is that where policy might head next?
That is a powerful direction for future policy analysis. A really interesting thought, acknowledging that just increasing income is only ever going to be half the battle if those core costs, especially healthcare, continue to soar unchecked year after year. Fascinating. Okay, before we wrap up, let's quickly summarize the 4 key financial improvements we've covered in this extensive deep dive. We want to ensure you leave with absolute clarity on what is confirmed and happening now versus what is proposed and still being debated.
Okay, let's recap. You have 4 powerful financial developments driving retirement security right now.
First, the confirmed 2.8% COLA. This is locked in, arriving in your benefits starting January 2026. It translates to an average of about $56 more in your monthly check, and it's based on objective economic data, not politics.
Second, the confirmed and already delivered $17 billion in lump sum payments. This went to over 3 million public servants, finally correcting the decades-long injustice caused by the windfall elimination provision and government pension offset under the Fairness Act. that money is out.
Third, the confirmed immediate tax relief starting in the 2025 tax year. That's the new senior tax deduction, offering up to $6,000 for single filers or up to $12,000 for married couples age 65 and older. This is in addition to the standard deduction, shielding more of your income from federal taxes.
And fourth, the potential transformation that's actively being debated on the horizon, the Social Security Expansion Act. This is the proposal that aims for a $2,400 annual benefit increase, $200 a month, would secure the program's funding for 75 years by adjusting the payroll tax cap on high earners and ensure future benefits are more accurately calculated for seniors using the CPIE.
Right. So these steps, both the ones already done and the ones being pushed for, they collectively reinforce that core promise of Social Security, which is really the commitment that all Americans who contributed throughout their working lives should be able to live with financial confidence and dignity in their retirement years. This is concrete action we're seeing, not just talk or hope.
Absolutely. And because this information is so vital, we strongly encourage you to please like this deep dive if you found it helpful. Share this crucial update with your friends, your family member, anyone you know who relies on these benefits or cares about the program's future. And please comment below with your specific questions about how these changes might affect you personally. We do read every comment, and they help inform our future analysis.
Yes, please do. And finally, please subscribe to the Deep Drive and make sure you turn on your notifications, that little bell icon. That way, you will never miss another important update or financial insight that directly impacts your stability and your future. Thank you so much for joining us for this in-depth analysis of the encouraging financial landscape surrounding Social Security.